All right. So do I call you Dr. Knob or call you Lance or
You definitely call me Lance. You could say a Dr. Knob once and then we'll go Lance or something like.
sounds good. Well, I appreciate coming on the podcast, taking the time. I know it's busy time and it's freaking hot in New Jersey for both of us. So, but I want to talk to you about your background and you have a unique things that you're doing with businesses and entrepreneurs, and you're a physical therapist originally. So maybe I'll let you start with your story and tell your background and get into it.
Sure. So I am a doctor of physical therapy, and my wife and I actually met in physical therapy school, of all places in Aberdeen, Scotland. And I know you love to
Oh,
travel, so we'll talk about that. And wanted to live and study abroad, so that was amazing. And I began practicing for several years and began feeling a little bit frustrated with the what I was able to offer and really not being able to put my hands on, do what we call manual therapy and really supervise exercise, the biggest skills in our profession. And we started a practice called Breakthrough, and we really wanted to integrate fitness and physical therapy as one of our differentiating factors and really to serve the world the best. And it's really not being done. So we started subletting 300 square feet, the size of an average bedroom, and kind of went from there and expanded into a 6,000 square feet space. And we have 6 locations, and we've developed some of our best people as partners, which I'm very passionate about. Developing your people and your leaders and
mm-hmm.
personal and professional development. I guess part of my story in 2011, something that really I want to share, one of the messages that um, most powerful and important to me is we just had our third child and we had 3 locations, about 30 people, and I was working too much and not sleeping enough and
Yeah. Oh,
burning
we
the
all.
candle
This
at
was you
both
said about
ends.
10 years ago.
Correct. And so 3 children, all under 4, and just abusing my body, and my body, revolted, and my gastrointestinal system, my digestive system stopped working,
Ooh.
and that was a slap in the face. I I couldn't eat, so I didn't have any energy, and I was trying to lead 30 people, 3 locations, support our young family, and I was able to pick myself up and get through that. But I'm really passionate about helping entrepreneurs stay healthy personally, and of
Right.
course have healthy businesses, and kind of avoid burnout.
Was it a lot related to, because you're in kind of a healthy profession, so was a lot stress related? I mean, because I think stress is like so worse than anything else we could do to ourselves. We just tear ourselves out, from the inside out. So that's what it was. It
Totally.
was just too much, huh?
Too much combination,
Yeah.
stress and sleep, and
Yeah.
not
Burning
enough
at both
exercise,
ends.
not eating well.
Yeah.
And I was just on with an entrepreneur who's sleeping 3 hours a week. It seems like sleep is one of the first easiest places entrepreneurs cut. And yeah, to your point, medical doctors, I had an endoscopy, and fortunately they didn't find anything. And sort of after the fact, their best
Yeah.
diagnosis was just stress related.
Yeah. No, I have a lot of GI issues growing up as a nice Jewish boy in New Jersey, right? And I've learned stay away from anything that ends in oscopy. It's never a good experience. I've
Agreed.
had endoscopies, sigmoidoscopies, and all these things like, oh, nope, not again. So we're going to do that. But I'm glad that you recovered from it. I think that people have the misimpression, like you become an entrepreneur, you become a business owner, the first thing you're supposed to do is not sleep for 48 hours and do everything overnight, not eat right, and just fall apart. And it doesn't need to be that way. As a matter of fact, it's definitely more of a marathon, as you and I were talking, when it comes to business planning and the kind of planning you need to do. It's not a sprint. The sprinters die out. They don't make it in business. And I think it was maybe it was an early lesson for you, a little bit of a wake up call. So, but at that point, 10 years ago, you had the business. It was pretty thriving, right? You had the 6 locations. You had
Yeah,
the
we
whole
had
thing
three.
going on. And you're like, how is
Yeah,
this
we had
possible,
3
right?
at that time, but you're right. It's mini. You can do some sprints, but they have to be mini
Right.
sprints, and you definitely have to make sure you're being sustainable.
Yeah. You just can't think you're going to sprint the whole way.
Agreed.
And then once I get there, I'll do this. And you never do. So you have to. Yeah, that's one of the mistakes I made when I was younger. Definitely believing that I could, you know, just be so tough and It's like the programmer. I was never a programmer, but the guys who did things on computers, they would stay up for 4 or 5 days developing this thing. And you know how they felt? That they were a wreck after. They were like full of energy and stuff. So yeah,
My
that's
college
good.
roommate was a computer engineer, and yeah, those guys are wired a little differently. He definitely was a night owl and stayed up all night, but then he'd sleep consecutive
During the
days
day.
after that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I know, it's crazy. All right, so that was 10 years ago. So keep taking us through the.
So yeah, more recently then in 2018, I was able to develop our best people and really create a fearless leadership team and what I'll call a freestanding business by putting the fundamentals in place.
It's important.
And I
That's still the
remember,
PT business at that point.
correct. So that's our breakthrough physical therapy and fitness. And in 2018, I had to kind of figure out what I was going to do because I handed off all the leadership hats. And I remember doing a development plan meeting with Dr. Nate Stelz, and he said, I want to be the CEO. And at first I was taken back. And then I realized, well, this could be great, so we can continue to work towards that over the next several years. And in 2018, that happened. And I tried to figure out what I was going to do. I was going to spread my wings. I talked to a franchise broker, looked at some franchises, realized I was a little too entrepreneurial for that. And then I, I was at Podcast Movement in Philadelphia. I went to see one of the
Yeah,
people
that's
I
a great.
really,
I want to go to that one day.
yeah,
There's a
it's
lot
really
of. It's like
fantastic.
thousands of people there, right? It's a big event.
It is. And they just went back to in person this year, but John Lee
Wow.
Dumas is really who I wanted to see.
Okay.
And I saw him, and a company called Self Publishing School was there. So I guess everything was kind of coming together. I realized I love developing people, leaders and entrepreneurs. And I was really resonating on doing some coaching, consulting, and helping, pay everything forward to other small business owners
Right.
and leaders. And Self-Publishing School, someone named Lisa Zelelnik, helped me realize that putting a book together would be a great way to get some credibility and authority. And, as a
Sure.
doctor of physical therapy and, small business owner, didn't really have much authority to, I'm certainly not Tony Robbins right at that point. So
Right.
I started a book and finished the book in 2020. And, in 2018, I did a group mastermind, started coaching and consulting people, kind of monetized, and released the book in 2020 called The 4% Breakthrough. And
Yeah.
my greatest passion is serving other entrepreneurs now, especially 6-figure entrepreneurs who want to get to 7 figures, especially entrepreneurs who, aren't taking good care of themselves and have a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
Lifestyle is totally under our control. And then also I'm really very profit first focused. I
Yeah. I
want to make
love
sure
profit
they're,
first. Yeah.
yeah, I want to make sure they're, not even profitable just on paper, but cash flow
Right.
profitable and positive, and making some good decisions in advance and paying themselves competitively because and even just investing, I really am studying investing and want to make sure they pay themselves first, both with their
Yeah.
exercise and also maybe putting some money away.
Yeah. No, definitely as human beings, even if it's not the most efficient way to do things, we tend to just do the thing that's easy. If we don't put in systems that save money and to do this and to do that, that's why I like profit first. And I like Mike. He was on my podcast, I think last summer or the summer before or something, in the middle of like I don't know, they had a power outage where he was. He got to his office and he talked to me on his cell phone or something, a little video we did. But he's I love all of his books. I use profit first for my practice. And yeah, I think it's a healthy way to live financially. So when you didn't exit the PT business though, you kind of moved from like CEO to chairman of the board, right? Is that basically what happened?
Basically, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm still doing some treating and I still love that, kind of doing a little bit less and less, but correct, I'm still the managing partner. And I love that you interviewed Michael Michalowicz. That's amazing. And I
Yeah, he's a
guess
great guy.
the way we met is through, I almost hate to use the word bookkeeper because Ainsley Maloney is so much more than that.
Yeah.
I guess my question for you is, do you use the profit first, like 100% on their model?
I don't. I mean, it's just me. I used to use it more in depth when I had a bigger practice, but for me, I want to keep things simple. So I basically have an operating account, a profit first account, and a taxes account. And I also have a personal account with my wife. So I'll move money over there. But money comes in 20%. I'm always a little bit more conservative about it because everybody keeps telling me 15, but 20% goes into the tax account. I pay stuff out of there. And then money goes into profit first. And then actually, when I changed my business and I really went back on my own in 2019, it was like July, August. So it took me a while to get things organized. I didn't know where my office was going to be, whatever. So I restarted my LLC, I think like January of, was it this year? Maybe it was this year. I really wanted a separation between the practice, had some debts and things like that. I didn't want to start up a new one and they'll just be like, well, it's a new practice, even though I had different partners. So I started in January. With the pandemic, it was very hard to manage. So when I set it up with the new LLC, I set up the accounts, started doing it. So in the end of the first quarter, it was around my anniversary. And I had, I don't know, $1,500 and $2,000 in there. I don't know, a couple $1,000. And yeah, and we went away for the weekend. And she's like, this is so nice. I'm like, well, I have this system that I use. Remember that guy was on my podcast? I love him. My wife's like, yeah. So now, like the quarter comes to an end. My wife's like, what are we doing this quarter? You know, and I'm like, we're sending our daughter to college. Oh, or we're paying a bill. That counts too, you know? So yeah, I like Mike. So the way, I don't know if Ainsley met Mike. So Ainsley came to I know this is totally off the topic, but whatever. So Ainsley came to this group that we have a Wednesday morning. Now it's a Zoom group. And we had Mike on because one of the people in the group is one of his pumpkin plan specialists or professionals, whatever he calls them. It's another one of his books, if anybody's listening. Great book, Pumpkin Plan, about, you know, really overcharging your business. And so she got him to come and speak to us. And then I kind of, stalking is the wrong word, but I kind of stalked him down until he said, yes, he would come on the podcast. I don't know if Ainsley met him through that or knew him before or whatever, but yeah, he's definitely a great guy. And he's local to us. I mean, he's in Boonton. So.
Okay. I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
he's a New
amazing.
Jersey guy. Yeah, he's a New Jersey guy.
I think Ainsley and I have a mutual client that we serve, Dive Design, who I believe is in Boonton as well. Some young industrial engineering guys who are doing amazing stuff.
I think I know who do they like prototypes for
Yes.
companies and things?
Yes.
Adam something.
Correct. Adam
Yeah.
Thal and Alex. Yep.
Yeah, I've spoken to them. Maybe it was through Ainsley. I've spoken to them too. Not on the podcast, but I've sent him a couple of leads for guys who are looking for prototypes and stuff.
Talented guys. Yep.
Yeah. Good. So I appreciate the question. And that leads us into, I know what you want to talk about, because you're talking about business planning, all the stuff you do for these guys. So hit me with it.
Oh, that's interesting. That's funny because I have just exposed Alex and Adam to what I call a Jolt business plan. And, you know, I know you're very passionate about doing some strategic work, as am I.
Yeah.
And I guess I realized, in 2018, when I started Denali Consulting, I had a 50-page business plan. Fortunately, I was mentored in how to do it, which is fantastic. However, it just wasn't practical. I couldn't use a 50-page.
It was like
business
too
plan.
big, right?
As a solopreneur, it was too big. I didn't have enough resources. It was just me. So I realized after some time that, you know, and most entrepreneurs aren't going to be able to, no entrepreneurs are going to be able to spend 40, 80, 120 hours to do that anyway. So I created a 2-hour version, what I call fast and functional, and it's plenty. And Ray Dalio, right? All these financial guys, they're smart. He's the one that really mentioned somewhere in Principles that, you know, you can make sure you're doing your strategic work. And by the way, it doesn't have to be extensive. I know we've both talked about that.
But it should be ongoing.
Correct.
I think that's the missing element, is that it's an ongoing process. You don't write, like you said, you write a 50-page business plan, you're so exhausted, you're going to put it aside for like the next year. You don't even want to look at it again. You're like, oh, I don't have the bandwidth to like do that again. But if like you said, if it was a short process, I boil it down to like 4 sections, or if you did a lean canvas or whatever you're doing, it's something that you can use as a tool, as opposed to it just being an exhausting exercise. I think that's that's their impression of business plans.
Yeah, definitely. The ongoing future management, sort of the measurement and control, like in sort of formal, you know, marketing business planning language. And, you know, remind me what you think, you know, you mentioned in your mind sort of the perfect format for that. What were the areas you would cover, even in a shorter, more functional version?
I think at least for start, right? To start, I think the 4 major areas of running any business. Well, there's obviously your product or service. So whatever it is you're doing, right? There's the people side of the business. Are you running this yourself? Do you have the skills to do it? Which a lot of people think they can do everything and they can't. Do you need help? Do you need a coach? Do you need a partner? Do you need employees? Whatever it is, it's, you know, kind of sketch that out. Definitely the marketing side of the business. the marketplace and the marketing, and then your financials, which doesn't have to be extremely in depth. Although I think, if you know your numbers, I think that's really important. But that's something that happens over time. So I think if you focus on those 4 areas, and they don't have to be completely developed when you start, just so you have an understanding of kind of who's sitting in the car and where it's going. That's the whole thing I think that people get out of working with like people like you who've had experiences, and you get down in life and you're like, that's not practical to just like do it that way and follow such a big plan, right? It's got to be something that works for you. That's why your question about profit first is very interesting to me, because you don't have to follow it to a letter. You need to implement some of the strategies and use it. Does that mean you will add to it and grow it? Will I add other bank accounts? Yeah, I might over time, but you got to get started, and
Yeah,
you
I
just
don't
got to
follow
do
it
it.
to the
Yeah.
T either.
Right.
And it's interesting. I've sliced the strategic marketing business plan slightly differently, and I'll share that. And the one additional thing that I've added is before am going to work with anyone, I want to get to know them. I feel like I need to customize I really can't help them until I go through what I call my Jolt process. And step
Absolutely.
one is I want to know what their why, their purpose, their mission, their cause, whatever you want to call it. And so I have them do that. And then something recently I've added is cross-checking that first step is prioritizing, knowing their priorities and literally listing them in order 1 through 5 or 1 through 10. Because some people might take the approach of, the oxygen mask, and they need to be healthy first to help their others, or they might have their kids first or their spouse,
Yeah.
but you have to make a hard decision. You just have to know your priorities.
Right. No, and I think that's good because you want to be effective for them. And if you're trying to figure it out and come, oh, this is the way we do it, we're great, and they're not even on the same page as you, and they're over here going, no, that's more important to me than this, and you don't know that or pay attention to, how could you be an effective, you know, coach, mentor, leader for them,
Absolutely.
guide to their life, because it's definitely a process. You find you work with people long term, or they work with you 6 months, a year, a couple of years, and then they're kind of ready to be kicked out of the nest, or
Oh, that's a great question. I guess because I'm sort of newer in the game, people have, like how Ainsley and I met, our mutual person, John Sherman and Video City Productions. He is really going to hit 7 figures this year, and he's paying himself more competitively, and the company's more profitable, and he's paying his people better. So, I mean, he literally doubled his profitability and is paying himself, from 50% to 75% of market.
wow.
So I don't know the answer to that. I do like the physical therapy philosophy of developing people and letting them spread their wings. So I think when people are ready, they're gonna fly, and I'll help them intermittently. But certainly, some of the 6-figure companies definitely need help for at least a couple of years.
Yeah, I think, look, obviously I've talked to a lot of different, let's use the word coach as a broad category, right? Coaches, mentors, advisors, I think I find, if I'm paying attention, that the most successful people tend to continue with their coaches and their advisors much longer than the ones that are, well, obviously struggling. They may not be able to pay your bills, and it gets hard for them. But I don't think that there's a point where people say, well, I'm so successful, I don't need Lance anymore. I think they say, I'm so successful because I have Lance, I don't want to give him up. And I think that'll probably be your experience too. I've seen that with most of the people that I've worked with. Their longest term clients are their most successful, who don't need them, but want, it's a choice at that point. It's not a need, it's a want.
Yeah, I think people are going to need to add to their inner circle, and there'll be people, experts in their inner circle with varying, backgrounds, and bring different things to the table.
Yeah.
And, what I've always asked my expert inner circle to do is to give me a recommendation, but then I have to own it and make that hard final decisions,
Right.
based on all that information.
Yeah. No, I'm a big advocate of advisory boards. And if you're small, maybe it's 2 people, maybe it's a coach and 2 other advisors, whatever. But
Right.
using that outside, even if you're just getting started and you're not in the position to hire a coach full time, and you're not really sure of everything, get a couple of people together, have lunch with them once a month, every other month, just to pick their brain. And over time, you'll start to develop a different perspective, and then be ready to keep grow to the next level. And I think a lot of people, I'm not saying you got to go join the alternative board or one of these other groups, Vistage, or I mean, some of them are expensive.
Yeah,
But
totally. Well, I
you
think you
get,
could do a couple things. I think you could probably, again, John Lee Dumas, someone I really follow and emulate, recommends, for everyone listening, the Common Path to Uncommon Success is a great book, and it's a great process. Every chapter is a step, but he recommends getting a mentor, someone who's maybe not Tony Robbins, like so far ahead of you, but just 1 year where you want to be.
right.
And
Some good
you might be able
advice.
to find some mentors who will help you complementary. Certainly that's been my story. Some people really paid it forward. And then also, a mastermind, either paid or unpaid. You could probably gather some other entrepreneurs that might be where you are in your journey, and you could get
Right.
together
Yeah.
frequently.
Once a quarter or something like that.
Totally. So I
Yeah.
have to share, my tweaked version of a strategic marketing business plan, my Jolt process.
Great.
So after this step one of really, making sure somebody's done some introspective work and thought through things themselves, then I want them to do the same thing for their company. What's the purpose of their company? They're going to cure cancer, because people want to work in an organization that has a cause. So they need to really firm that up and make sure that it's on paper and they're sharing it with everyone. That's externally facing, outwardly facing. So share that. And then I want to know their vision. And this is like the finished product, right? Are they going to be $1 trillion company like Apple and have a circular building and with, international, or are they going to be virtual, brick and mortar? Do they want to create legacy? Do they want to build something up to a certain point and sell it? Are they going to remain the CEO to a
Right.
certain period of time? And, financial freedom is usually part of that equation. They don't really know the numbers, what that could look like and what's involved in selling and all the costs. So that's a lot of fun. And then, we really try to crystallize their avatar, their ideal client, their
Yep.
segment, whatever word or words you want to use. And there's several
No, it's
ways to
good.
slice that.
Yeah. But
And
who you do business with can be a choice. Doesn't have to be, right?
so if you do that exercise, it can be. If you don't,
Yeah.
it's usually not. You
It's just
take
you're all
whatever
over the
comes your
place.
way.
Well, I can't not go to that because I might get business from him and I got to talk to him and I better be nice to him because he knows this part. I'm like, it's exhausting for me just to listen to that stuff sometimes, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then you can bounce back and forth. You can toggle a little bit in my process between your strategy and your objectives. Because often, you're going to say, and this is where we start to boil it down to like a 12-month or a 1 year plan. We want to do X revenue and X profitability, X number of clients. Okay, but I'm going to do that by having the most quality product or whatever. So
Right.
they can toggle. And then one last step before we jump to actions is critical success factors. Really, without doing these things, you will fail. So for me, with my physical therapy business, we lost our Medicare contract, or as a solopreneur, if you lose your health, things like that. So you really put them on the radar and remember them. And then once you finish these steps, and only then can you jump to actions, because I see that as one of the big common mistakes, especially in sort of action oriented or salespeople. They want to jump straight to actions,
Oh my
and
God. They want to go to China, make the product, fill up the
yeah,
basement, and they're off selling, and then
totally.
it's just, I mean, there's a lot of mistakes made there and people can do things and test things and learn and figure themselves out and where they want to be and what they want to do all strategically. But if you don't have a plan, what do they say? If you don't plan, if you don't, what is it? If you don't plan, you'll
Failing to
flat
plan is planning to
to
fail.
fail. There you go.
Yes.
I know that. Yeah. I'm a little tired today, but yeah, I think that's true. And I think a lot of people, I don't know, maybe it's that entrepreneurs are very, and I guess maybe you're like this too, very right brain creative. You want to create something, you're working on the website, you're coming out with the product, you're building the marketing thing, you're so excited about it, but you skip some vital steps that the left brain really could kind of have a lot of input on. And I think we all kind of fall victim to that a little bit. But consciousness, like you said, whether you read a book or you follow somebody or you follow multiple people and you like their philosophy, that I think that's a lot to be said for staying out of that trap of just being so enamored by the next shiny object in the room. You're like, oh, I love that. And then you forget all the things that you need to do,
And it's a balance. It's a combination of being on the mountaintop and doing some strategic work versus being down, in the trenches and, hand-to-hand combat. You can't do just one or the other, and you have to do the right amount at the right time as well. So it's not easy, right? And that's why 96% of small businesses fail within 10 years. It's
yeah.
definitely not easy.
Look, it took a lot for you to, employ the E-Myth, right? And get away from the business to be able to focus on things. And I'm sure it took strategic planning just to even equip your business so it could run without you to the extent that you wanted it to, right?
Absolutely. Definitely, in my book, it's the middle section of the business fundamentals, really. So my book, similar to JLD, is, every chapter is a step or a process. And the first section is introspective, like your purpose, your mission, your why. And then the second section is business fundamentals. And then the last section is actionable health and lifestyle information, mental health, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and then posture and ergonomics.
Yeah, no, because you're a PT guy, so you know all that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Posture and ergonomics. I mean, you are talking my language right here.
Well, yeah, I should sit up. I got you on here. It'll look good. But yeah, posture. Oh my God, posture is such a big. I mean, I guess if you think about it, right, from a posture standpoint, if you're always walking like this, whatever, you get depressed. If you're feeling good, it's just kind of, I don't know what goes first. Is it the feeling good and then you have the posture, or you have the good posture and it makes you feel good? I don't know. You're the PT guy.
There's a little bit of back and forth on that for sure. I
Okay.
mean, obviously being up, in better posture, you're getting more oxygenation to your brain, which is going to control
Okay.
those hormones. So yeah, a little bit of chicken and egg. You could probably argue either way, but it's connected. So, and there's a lot of debate among the neuroscientists, really, almost like the think and grow rich, right? Is it the thought first or the action first? And I've heard it said both ways. I think it's Andrew Huberman at USC, I think, is one of the in the camp of it's actually the action first, because really I think the majority of neuroscientists people are kind of saying, think it and then it'll happen, almost like Napoleon Hill type thing. So I'm really fascinated about neuroscience and even like Elon Musk company, if you're not familiar with Neurolink, for example.
Yeah. What's that do? I know
Do you
he's got
know?
a lot of companies,
So this is a brain computer interface.
so it can
So
integrate with your brain.
yeah, so in his words, it's like putting a Fitbit in your brain with two leads, and he's going to follow the formula for eye surgery. It's going to be a couple $1,000s out of pocket. There's literally going to be a robot that's going to take a little chunk of your skull, and it's going to be automated. And the initial uses are going to be very exciting. Again, for me, as a physical therapist, it's going to be spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, vision loss, hearing loss. It's going to change the world.
You mean to make that whole system work again, basically?
Yeah, any problems like a spinal
Yeah.
cord injury, it'd almost be like if you had a tripped circuit breaker, right? The technology is
Yeah.
going to fill in that gap now, so they'll be whole. They'll be able to function.
Major science fiction, like we see in the movies. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little bit of both. I think you can't just have action without positive thinking, right? And you can't just be positive and just thinking like God will provide. Well, God put you on a lake in a boat and you get a row to shore before you get hit by lightning. I mean, that's the providing, right? So, but I am a big believer from the neuroscience standpoint that we are, our bodies are running with electricity. And if we have positive feelings and thoughts and whatever, we definitely put that out there. I mean, people that are, people that you're around, you're just like not happy to be around them. They're not happy people. They're not nice. They're depressed, whatever. And they put that out to the world. And I think that you get that back. Like we're in an attraction. Um, I'm not a doctor, you are, but we're in an attraction world, right? You don't kind of distract people. There's no like dispelling things. If you're worried about something, somehow you attract that inadvertently. So I think that, a lot, it kind of fits together. I think it's two halves of a whole. I guess they'll debate it because they want to be scholars or whatever, but
No,
yeah,
there's so much truth to that. Really, who you spend your time with, and who you attract, and it's part of the reason I love spending my time with. In 2018, I realized with leaders and entrepreneurs. I mean, it's the most exhilarating thing to me. And I was just at an amazing conference with entrepreneurs in 2021 in Puerto Rico, and it was a small conference, 100 people, and I never
yeah,
really
I mean,
heard the
who's
term
going to Puerto Rico in
manifest.
2021? You got a lot of guts.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
was on health, wealth, and impact philanthropy. It was just like so much neuroscience, in the health part, and
Yeah.
the Thaddeus Gallo was finishing his PhD in neuroscience, and just really resonated with me. And I never heard the term manifest used so often. but these 100 entrepreneurs, we're all supporting each other. I just got off of a mastermind, real estate and other things, real estate investing and other things with these same people, and people are literally creating success and creating what they're imagining. So there's definitely a lot of truth to it on what you're
Right.
saying
Yeah.
on
So
the
you
attracting
do your
partner.
own coaching. You practice what you preach. You go to the mastermind groups. You
Absolutely.
attend the things. You want to, just like me, I want to, absorb all that stuff.
For
It's
sure.
exciting. It's exhilarating.
Totally.
Now,
You can be
now
a little bit of a
here's
junkie on the
You
learning
do,
part. Yeah.
definitely. I remember when I was younger and I was in sales and I was, try to get motivated, whatever. And we had cassette tapes in those days, right? So remember those like plastic books from Nightingale Conan?
Oh
What I'd
yeah.
be popping one out, popping one in.
Who were you listening to?
Oh, I was everything. Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar,
Yeah.
everything, all the way to Deepak Chopra all over the place. Because you'd finish the book and you'd be like, oh, there's got to be something else. And then you'd find all this great stuff. There's so much good stuff out there that different people are putting out. Like, you mentioned JLD. He's got other things that he reads and he's fine. So I always want to know what they have learned from, and you follow that kind of path along the way. And they cross a lot of times,
Yeah,
it's
totally.
it's interesting. So here's a tough question.
Yeah.
You've been coaching now for about 3-4 years, right?
Yep.
Coach a lot of people. Anybody, I don't want names, obviously, but do you have any recollection of some people where you've met and you're just like, I just don't think I can help this person? Maybe it's their mindset or whatever. Do you remember those experiences?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, people have to, that's sort of the challenge of being, a coach consultant, that they still have to execute. And certainly, yeah, if people don't have their minds right, it becomes pretty obvious as you're really getting to know someone that's, maybe they're just not quite ready. So yeah, no, there's plenty of people. And then there's people even in physical therapy. And I can remember in fitness when I had to fire my first client, who it was very, very rare, but
Right.
someone who was just cantankerous. I mean, just negative, and there was no fixing it. We had exhausted it, and I
Yeah.
had to ask him to
And
leave.
he
But
needed
yeah,
your help, but you just couldn't give it to him.
yeah, this was fitness. More on like the membership side. They were just a negative influence, and it's pretty hard to. I remember it being hard to sort of fire a client, right? I'm like, this sort of seems like the opposite of what I'm trying to do, but it was the
Right.
right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sometimes, and not just coaches, in business, you can't work with everybody. There's people, personalities that you can't work with, and there's negative people that will not only you won't be able to help, but then they're going to drag you down. You're going to affect your other clients. And I think people overlook that sometimes when they're just trying to get every client they possibly can. The negative impact that a bad client can have on your business is sometimes irreparable,
And just like a bad hire. And,
Yeah, that's bad
again,
too.
bringing it
Yeah.
back to that good old strategic marketing plan, right? I mean, if you don't know your avatar, your segment, your niche, your ideal client, right,
You
and
can't
you try to
identify
be
it. Right.
everything to, just attack all these angles, it's not going to work. You
No.
spread too
And I
thin.
think it's exhausting. It's not a healthy way. Like, I think everybody, right? You go into business, people like you were joking with me and I'm joking, accidental entrepreneur, right? But we go in with the intention of being successful. Maybe we all don't have the vision of it, but so why would you want to then build a business like totally haphazard like that, right? You wouldn't do
Yeah.
anything else in your life that way. You wouldn't run your house totally. Well, maybe some people do. It's probably a mess. You wouldn't run your house haphazard. You wouldn't participate in sports haphazardly. They're organized. You can't win, but people do it in business, and it's more important than any of those. Well, maybe not your household, but you know what I mean. And then, so I'm hoping that with all this stuff, and that's one of the reasons I do the podcast, one of the reasons why you write the books, and we're out there, preaching the good word, is that people will, a little bit from everybody, start to learn things. Is we're all, so many of us now are entrepreneurs, we're small business owners. I'm not even sure that many people should be small business owners, but just the world has changed and the way you can do it. But you better go out there and you better learn some fundamentals and how to do strategic planning, and find people like you that fit, that they feel is a good fit, and like me or like you or whatever. And don't do it on your own, just winging it, because it doesn't have to be that. It could be a lot easier and a lot more fun.
I would really love to see the numbers reverse, the 96% failure stat become a 96% successful stat. I mean, entrepreneurship is amazing. And especially if you can develop the skills enough to have some success and balance and achieve financial freedom and lifestyle freedom and geographic freedom.
Right.
You know,
And 9 times out of 10, I think you'll agree with me that it's not that there are things that you and I can do that other people can't do. They don't do them. Successful people do the things that other people are unwilling to do. Not
yeah,
that they can't do in most cases, right?
pain. I'm reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, and the chapter I just finished is on just that. There could be a little, like, really successful people or elite athletes, there's a little bit of boredom, and you have to actually be able to persevere through that, a little bit of boredom, a little bit of pain.
Yeah, maybe it gets a little bit easier for them relative to other things. But I mean, look, there's things that Elon Musk does and Jeff Bezos do and Richard Branson are doing that a lot of us can't do. But the basic fundamentals of strategic planning and coaching and learning and doing it the right way, that's all available to all of us. It's all available. Go out and do it. So you got a little bit more time or we got to,
Oh, I'm all
you
yours.
good? All right,
Yeah.
good. So what are your plans, right? Because now the world is kind of changing and you just admitted that you went to Puerto Rico. I hope you got a COVID test when you came back. I got one from Florida. We turned up negative yesterday.
Oh, good.
What are your plans for this year in terms of your coaching business?
Yeah. So definitely continuing to develop myself. This group I mentioned, the Guardians, is having a peak brain performance conference that I'm really excited about. However, yeah, COVID is still rearing its ugly head a little bit because it's in Austin in a couple weeks, so I have to
Oh,
figure that
Texas,
out.
not good. Austin's bad.
I
Their
know.
hospitals are overwhelmed, and it's a great city. Austin's a great city. That's
Oh,
where is the University of Texas in Austin,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
But they're having a tough time.
I was there for the first time 2 years ago for self-publishing schools, first in-person conference, and that's going to be virtual this year for the second year in a row, which is a really,
That the
you know,
first time was before the pandemic.
it was, yeah, that was my first time in Austin. It was a blast. So Austin's amazing. So yeah, really excited about continuing to study the brain and investing. I'm really doing a lot of work and have some my own mastermind and accountability groups on real estate investing. I really want to
Mhm.
diversify and get my first physical property. I've done some sort of crowdfunding over the last couple of years,
Uh-huh.
and I read Benjamin Graham's The Intelligent Investor, and just really a lot of more basic books, let's call it, because that's a heavy read, but I highly recommend it. That will open your mind like no other. I don't know if you've read that.
No, but I will now. I always
Okay.
like hearing about new books.
Be ready. I
I
mean,
don't
that's
know
what
them.
Warren Buffett considers the greatest investing book of all time. I mean, he must be some kind of statistician. He went from the stock market and reviewed it from, in the 1880s all the way through, and then reviewed it like every chunk of, 20 or 30 years until he passed. So it's pretty powerful. Definitely check that out. So yeah, really loving, learning about investing and the brain and leadership so I can, support the people that I serve the best. And yeah, I'm always, now that half the year is over, this time of year is a
Yeah.
great time for people to look at the first half of their year and do an updated or, create their first marketing business plan.
Yeah. So what's the
And
best way for people to learn about you, interact with you, that type of
sh-
stuff?
sure. People can email me directly at Dr. Lance Knob at denaliconsultingteam.com. Denali,
Okay.
like the mountain. That's the
Go the
native
car.
word for great one for, it was Mount McKinley temporarily. And I'm on socials at Dr. Lance Knob on Instagram
Right.
and
We'll put
Lance
all
Knob.
these links in the show notes
Yeah,
too.
perfect.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and if anyone really, I know we talked a lot about business planning, but my offer to people would be
Yeah.
I've got a complimentary version of that process I described. And
Okay.
um, if people go to denaliconsultingteam.com/strategy, they can receive that complimentary. And if people want the additional gift, if you actually take the first cut at it, I will give you a complimentary strategy call, 20-minute strategy call to help fill in any gaps on your marketing business plan.
Okay, great. Well, I love offers for guests, listeners. So let's put a link in the show notes with that whole URL. People can go there and give it a try and hopefully get them on the right path, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So Dr. Lance Knaub, I appreciate you coming on, spending time with me. I thank Ainsley for introducing us. And let's definitely stay in touch. Maybe we get some coffee at some point in person when we're allowed to go back out in the world. And
Absolutely. I would love that.
talk a little bit. All right. Thanks for coming on, Lance.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mitch.